All right. So sorry for that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maria Brioche. I'm the Education and Outreach Officer at SIF, and I'm based at Vallée de Mai on Fralin. So on Monday, 21st of February, we celebrated International Tour Guide Day. So the tour guides, they're playing an important role on how visitors experience the places they visit. They act as ambassadors of the site they represent, and also they ensure the satisfaction of the guests during the visit. So tour guides, they help to introduce the unique historical, cultural, and natural heritage of the site they represent, and also of the country, to not only tourists, but also to locals that visit the site, and they do this in the best way possible. So today we want to say thank you to all the guides for the wonderful work that they are doing, and to show our support for the work. We at SIF, we would like to provide them with more information about the Vallée de Mai, which is one of the sites they represent here on Vallée. So to begin, I would like to invite the Director General for Planning and Development from Department of Tourism, Mr. Paul Lebon, to do an opening remark.
Thank you, Mrs. Brioche. SIF representatives, tour guides, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words for this event commemorating International Tour Guides Day, which was celebrated on the 21st of February. I would like to commend our partners from the Seychelles Island Foundation who have organized this training, and for their dedication for not only ensuring that our World Heritage sites are well managed and protected areas, but also for their tremendous efforts to encourage the education of our locals and various partners as well through their trainings. I know that everyone present here will come out of this training with improved knowledge and awareness of the unique species of the Vallée de Mai site. It is a crucial part of developing our destination as the world-class product that it is in the region. I take this excellent opportunity to address all tour guides present today on behalf of the Tourism Department and our Principal Secretary, Mrs. Sharon Francis, to sincerely thank you for your commitment towards our tourism industry. As the Tourism Department continues with its work on the campaign L'Hospitalité, la Fierté Seychelles, which we launched recently, I would like to emphasize that all efforts put to better our industry are valuable. À cause c'est zot lakay, c'est zot souri qui pour faire séjour sa client vraiment mémorable. Nous pas oublier ça. We are glad to see this training complement with ours in adding value to the services offered. You, the local tour guides, our local tour guides, will help surpass the high expectations of our visitors. Once again, we would like to thank you all for being present, and I'm delighted and honored to open the session and wish you all a happy learning experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lebon, for this very nice speech. So before we start with the presentations, we have, thank you, we have four different presentations. Let us get interactive with the guides that we have here in the room. So I will ask you 4 or 5 questions, just to see how much they know already about SIF and about the Vallée de Mai. Okay, we have now 3 guides, freelance guides. So my first question to them is, what is SIF? What is SIF?
It's a Seychelles Island Foundation. SIF is the Seychelles Island Foundation.
Okay. So what do you know what is its mandate? Okay, we have another guy who would like to try. You want to try? Yes, Albert.
Okay, just like Joseph has said, is the Seychelles Island Foundation. It's an organization that was set up for responsibility of our two World Heritage Sites of Seychelles. And they are the organization that taking care of the parks, the two World Heritage Sites. And since now, I would say they are on a good step and they're doing well. And I would also encourage them, just like they say to the guide, that before you enter Vallée de Mai, there's a board. You must explain why the 50% is given out of their ticket that they pay. The 50% goes to the protection of Aldabra. And this is something that we always do every day. We explain to the clients how they pay their ticket and how the 50% goes to the protection of Aldabra. And I will always encourage you, continue the good work, and thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Joseph and Albert. And like they mentioned, the SIF is a non-profit public trust who manages the two UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Seychelles, and that is Aldabra and the Vallée de Mai. And also, most recently, the SIF also manages the Fonferdinand Reserve. Okay, I have another question. The other question goes like this. What is the estimated population of black parrots on trial? So the black parrot is found only on Praslin. So I would like to know what is the estimated population for the black parrot here on Praslin? Okay, you have an answer?
It's about 900 populations.
Okay, they say about 900 individual. And the answer I have is from 1,200 to 1,400.
But the last census was Pascal.
No, there was another census after Pascal. Anyway, you will be able to get all this information later on during Monica's presentation. Thank you. We have another question. So for how long does the female Cocodema flowers remains open for pollination before it closes?
24.
Okay, Joseph says 24 hours. Well done. Very good. It's 24 hours indeed. Next one. What makes the yellow crazians invasive? What do you think makes it invasive?
It's killing all of our endemic plants.
Okay, Sandra says it kills a lot of the endemic plants.
And also
They are animals, I mean, they are, that means they are aggressive. And then it's because they are competitive and they also create super colony. Yeah. The last question. This one is about the lizard, reptiles. This question goes like this. And it is a multiple choice question. So how many species of green-day geckos are there in the Vallée de Mai? We have A, 3, B, 2, C, 1.
3.
Green-day geckos.
3.
They say 3. Do we have 3?
we said green.
Green-day gecko, green-day gecko.
What do you want?
Pink. We have two. We have two species of green gecko. We have the Seychelles gecko and the Sandbergy gecko. So thank you very much for your participation. So now we'll move straight, we'll move on to the presentations. Okay, after. Yeah? Okay, so now we move on to the presentation. I would like to invite Miss Monica Griffith now to do a presentation about the black parrot, and this will then followed by Miss Irma Jibois with a presentation on the Cocodema, and then another one with, by Jessica Constance on control of yellow crazy ants in the Vallée de Mai, and we'll end with Brian Sriana on a presentation with reptiles. So please note, we'll take all the questions after we have done all four presentations. So happy listening, and over to you, Monica.
Thank you, Miss Maria. Just tell you a bit about myself. I am English, but I've been working here at the Vallée de Mai for 3 years now as the black parrot officer. These little birdies drive me crazy, but I do love them. And I think the work we do here to look after them is really important. So I'm going to share a screen with you of my presentation. That one. Share it. So I'm hoping that you can see this presentation on your screens.
Yep, it's up.
Thank you. So I'm going to be talking to you about the Black Parrot Project. So about the parrots in general, but also the reason behind the project, and what we are aiming to find out with it. There's also going to be lots of cute pictures of parrots, because there should be always. So, as I'm sure some of you know, there used to be another parrot in Seychelles on Mahe, but that one's now extinct. So the only parrot left, the extant parrots left in Seychelles, is the Seychelles black parrot. This is the scientific name, it's Coracopsis bartlei, Perroquet noir, Cato noir, so many names for it. But it's the only one left here in Seychelles, so we really need to protect it. There are 3 other species of black parrot in the world, found in Madagascar and one in Comores. And originally it was thought that the Seychelles black parrot was just like a variant of the lesser Vassa parrot that was found in Madagascar. So it was thought to be Coracopsis nigra. But in 2014, genetic research worked with SIF, and they confirmed that the black parrot actually is its own species. So it became named Coracopsis bartlei, and actually that it's genetically the oldest species of black parrot. So this one evolved first before these 3. So actually it's obviously, it makes it the best one. So there have been 2 population estimates in recent years of the black parrot population here on Prana. In 2013, it was thought to be between 500 and 900 birds, so individuals found on Prana. And in 2018, another population study was done, and this found a much higher number of birds, up to about 1,700. The crucial thing to remember about these numbers is that although it looks like the population has almost doubled, actually we think it's stable. What it is that we developed a better method of counting them. So it just means that now we can be more precise in our numbers. It's obviously hard to count birds because they fly around and they don't stand still letting you count them. So it is an estimate. It does look like the numbers went up, but actually what we think is that there's been no increase and there's been no decrease. So a bit of brief background on the project itself, not just the black parrot. So as I'm sure you know, it's only found on Prana, although there are accounts of the parrots flying over to Curios. It is possible historically that they would have bred on Curios because there is Cocodema naturally found there. However, as a result of the fires on Curios, the Cocodema is not old enough to support breeding populations of parrots, but they might still be flying over to feed there. So to the best of our knowledge, they only breed on Prana. SIF began the Black Parrot project in 2009 to find out everything, to find out their basic biology and ecology, what stops them being successful breeders, what makes them successful breeders, where do they travel, who do they travel with, are they found in groups, are they individual, what are their threats, what's stopping them from the population from growing. So SIF was quite ambitious. That was the plan, find out everything. So one of the ways that we have worked to do this is by putting colored rings on each leg of a parrot. So we put one ring per leg because their legs are quite small, so they can only hold one ring. And this allows us to identify individuals. So if we see this bird in the picture here, because you always read bird rings from the left leg to the right leg. So this one is silver green. And it means wherever we see silver green again, then we can track its history. We know where we ringed it. This will help us to answer questions about the parrots, such as how long do they live? So right now we have birds flying around in the Vallée de Mai that were ringed in 2009. So because we have that means that we know they live at least 14 years. What we don't know is how old those birds were when we ringed them, because you can't tell, it was an adult bird. But we also ring chicks in nests. So hopefully as we track those birds, we will follow their lifespan. And this will be able to tell us how long do they live, who they mate with, do they mate for life, do they reuse nests? Is family very important to them? Do they stay in the same groups? So by being able to identify birds individually, it helps us to answer all of these questions. One of the most interesting things about the black parrot is their breeding behavior. So we focus our project on the breeding season. Went too fast. Yeah, it went too fast. So it's highly unusual in the bird world, but each breeding female of Seychelles black parrot has a unique breeding call. It is only her that uses that call. It means that when you are familiar with the calls as you're walking through the forest, you can think, you can know this parrot that's calling now, I know where she lives, I know what rings she's wearing. It's really strange. It is mostly in the bird world, it is the male that calls, and to have this unique call for one call per bird is really unusual. The crucial thing to know about this is that because it is a unique call that is only for her, if you imitate this call, you can really cause her a lot of stress. And in the past, we have had birds have abandoned their chicks. They abandon their nest because they're too stressed to continue looking after their nest. And in fact, this year we lost one nest of 4 fertile eggs because the female was too stressed to continue returning to them. So I know that it is tempting when you're in the forest and you hear a call and it's tempting to whistle back to her and think maybe she will come down and interact with me. Actually, all you are doing is stealing her identity and causing her a lot of stress and maybe risking her abandoning her eggs or her chicks. So we beg people, not to imitate the parrots. Another odd thing about the parrots is that they are cooperative breeders. They seem to have a group of helpers that all help to look after the nest together. But so the female will go in and incubate the eggs, but others will come and help provide food to the female so that she can stay with the eggs and the chicks for longer. So it's quite unusual behavior in parrots. These are, oh, I wonder if these will play for you. These are called, it's not going to work, is it? Jessica. Some of them playing. So there, we have some calls recorded.
I think you need to make sure you share screen with the audio for you to play sound.
Well, we just learned a thing.
Yeah, so if you just stop screen sharing and then there's like a little arrow next to it.
Stop sharing. And then
when you want to share screen, there's like a little checkbox at the bottom that says share sound as well or something.
Oh.
Nifty.
Very. Look at that. Every school day. Let me try it now then. So if I play this now, did you hear that?
Yep.
That one can't play and that one doesn't want to play. Well, that's a shame. It's 3 very different calls, just as an example of how varied they can be, but for some reason they don't want to play. But it's so while we are working in the forest, because we know, like we hear a call and we know it comes from a certain nest, then if we hear that call and we're somewhere else in the forest, we already know, she's moving around. She's going to different places. So it can tell us a lot if we're listening as we walk around the forest while we're conducting our work. These are sonograms, just the 3 calls to see the variation. This hopefully will work for you. So this is a short video. The bird on the left is the breeding. You can see she used her breeding call just then. She is being fed by this unringed bird on the right. So by helpers coming to feed her, it limits her time out of the nest. Important for her eggs and for her chicks. But interestingly, now comes to this other bird, this other helper, who you see has rings on, so it's definitely a different bird. And this one also feeds her. So at first when you see them feeding, you assume it's just her mate, the male partner, the father of her chicks. But actually it's the group of helpers that all contribute to raising that nest full of eggs and chicks, which is very unusual in a parrot population. So there's the typical breeding behavior that I'm sure most people are familiar with. The breeding season starts roughly November, December, and everything is fledged by maybe February, the beginning of March. We have up to 4 eggs in a nest, although 2 to 3 is much more normal. And we have never fledged more than 2 chicks from one nest. So normally, if you lay 2 eggs, you'll maybe have 1 chick. You have 3 eggs, probably you'll only get 2 chicks, or even 1. When the birds are in breeding condition, so their beaks turn this sort of pale yellow color. So out of breeding season, they are brown from head to toe, despite their name of black parrot. But in the breeding season, they put on their yellow noses just for fun. So it's how you can distinguish them during the breeding season. Like as the season begins to start, if you start to see the yellow beaks, then you know they're coming into breeding condition. Over the years, we've monitored lots of eggs, lots of nests, but we have quite low breeding success. So I even see in the year 2014 to 15, they had more than 50 eggs, but only, I think, 12 fledglings. So even when there are eggs around, when breeding is happening, there's not actually that much successful addition to the population. And this is one of the things that we've been looking at as the project, as to why it seems quite poor breeding success. But to do this work is really quite challenging for a lot of reasons. So it's difficult to see parrots in the Vallée de Mai because of the Cocodema leaves. They're really quite big leaves and quite small birds. So to see a single bird and read its rings, it's just hard. We've had to come up with novel ways to look inside nests because they predominantly nest in dead trees. This makes it very difficult. So we can't, say, climb a tree if it's dead, because that would be dangerous. So we have, this is an ordinary baby monitor on the end of an extendable pole that we can lower into cavities and see what's inside. We also use mad freestanding ladders. So this is the nest here, this tree with the orange ribbon. The ladder can't touch the tree because the tree is dead, so we risk pushing it over. So instead we use ropes to secure the ladder. So you can see I'm at the top of this ladder, my colleague Terence on the ground. All of this is just done so that we can look inside the nest. So here you can see the ladder close up, it's not actually touching the tree. So this work is really quite time consuming, takes a lot of effort. Over the course of the project, we have discovered that the black parrots face a wide variety of threats. Nest predation is a really big issue here. So we have invasive rats and cats. We also have miners. All of these can impact they can actively kill eggs or chicks. They can also use the nest space themselves. So they compete with the parrots for suitable nests. Not the cats, the rats will nest inside parrot cavities, and so will miners, Indian miners. So then the parrots have nowhere that they can live because the available nest spaces are all taken. So you can see this is a rat nest inside a parrot cavity, and a miner using one that could have been used by parrots instead. They are also at risk of the changing climate. So we've started to lose a lot of nests when we have big storms. So last year there were some really big storms in February and there was a lot of rain. So quite a few of our chicks died. So we had big chicks at that point, but they died in the storms. This year we had trees fall over. And so then when the tree falls over, then the chick landed on the floor, but then it was eaten by a cat. So this, with climate change, then we suspect that the birds will become much more vulnerable. Because they are such a small population just found on Prana, there is a real risk of disease spreading through them. So we knew that the green parrot on Mahe, Cocodema, had a really terrible parrot disease. And this was one of the reasons why they were eradicated, because there was a risk of them coming over to Prana and so then spreading this disease to the parrots here. So we don't have that threat anymore, but there could be any disease that pops up. It could have a real impact because it's such a small population. This is a little video of, here we have an active nest. This is a few days before it was about to fledge. This is the mother that has come to feed it. So when they're little, then the mother will climb down inside the nest and feed them inside. But when they're nearly ready to leave, then she will encourage them to climb to the top of the tree, give them, to get exercise to strengthen their muscles before they leave. Unfortunately, later that night, exactly the same nest, received a visitor. So this is a real problem because the parrots are not evolved to deal with rats. And so they can't really stand up to them. And particularly as eggs or as younger chicks, then the rats will eat them. So it's a big issue for us. So as part of that, we've been conducting rat trapping trials to see if we start carrying out rat trapping within the Vallée de Mai, do we have greater nest success? And it seems like we do. So here you can see we had where we did no rat trapping, most of the nests fail. Where we do a lot of rat trapping, the majority of nests are successful. So hopefully this will continue in the future. It might be the only way to ensure that the parrots are able to breed successfully. Last year, season 12, was the most unusual season on record for the Black Parrot Project, because mysteriously, even though the parrots breed from December to March, they started to breed in July. It is possible that this was because of climate change, maybe affecting some of the plants. We're not entirely sure what triggers the birds to start breeding. So maybe if there is certain food available, then they start to breed. And maybe the plants reacted to climate change, causing the birds to. Interestingly, it wasn't all of them that bred in the July-September event. So it was about half. And then the other half bred like normal in December to March. So we had a constant breeding season. It was hard work to keep track of for the research team here. And we have no idea what caused that. So it's a thing that we will be looking out for in future, is spotting signs of breeding outside of the traditional breeding time. The current breeding season has been reasonable. We had 19 nests, a bit of a slow start, but I think that was maybe due to the drought in December. But then once the drought ended, we started getting nests. So far we've lost 9, which is less than half I'm quite happy with. And there's been a range of reasons. It's not just rats. Actually, as of today, this is now out of date, we have 3 fledglings. So we have chicks still in the nest. We have some that have fledged. So it looks like it's going to be a successful season. Some basic numbers, we've had more than 350 parrots in 13 years now, with rings on. Over 100 fledglings, which is fantastic. And these stunning birds start out life looking like this. It's my favorite picture of a parrot ever. There are posters around the valley asking people if your guests ever have good looking cameras, like if they take pictures that show where you can see the parrot's rings, either the colors on both legs, sorry, or the color and number of one leg. Then we ask them to send these pictures in, because they can help us with our records, so we can learn more about the parrots that way. Thank you for listening. I believe somebody else is going to come and talk to you. No, unless there's any questions. Screen sharing has stopped apparently. No questions? Somebody else talking?
I think Miss Maria said we leave the questions to the end.
Fair enough. Then we shall pass on to somebody else.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica, for this very nice presentation. So now we would like to invite Irma for her presentation on the Cocodema.
Hi, I'm Irma. I'm Field Research Officer at the Vallée de Mai. So I will be presenting about the Cocodema. Activity. Sorry, having a technical difficulties on our side. The PowerPoint doesn't want to start showing.
Oh, I can see your screen.
But it doesn't want to go to the next page. I'll share, I'll do slideshow again, and then we'll try. There we go. So why do we conserve the Cocodema? So there are different reasons to why we conserve the Cocodema trees. It's endemic. It's only found naturally in Seychelles. It is a symbol. It is used mostly in jewelries. You can see it on the passport for tourism purposes, ecosystem services. The Cocodema trees plays a very important role in the ecosystem. It funnels water and also provides protection for other species. So the Cocodema is one of the keystone species. Okay, so our research, what do we do? So we have the Regeneration Program. This was developed in 2012 to protect the nuts from poaching and overharvesting, and to ensure that Cocodema conservation at Vallée de Mai and Fond Pépère will persist in the future. The aim of the program was to protect at least 20% of the Cocodema of nuts that fall in VDM, Vallée de Mai, and Fond Pépère each year. So currently, we are monitoring 585 nuts, which are checked twice a month. First, it is checked by the custodians. They are the people that take care of the nuts and make sure the nuts are there. And then it is checked over by the rangers of the research team to make sure that they are just a double check. Yeah. So the Vallée de Mai custodians, they act as the guardians to the Cocodema nut. Part of the Regeneration Program is the growth monitoring, whereby we measure all the different seedlings. So far, we have 406 pre-seedlings, which we've been measuring since 2016. So we measure them until they detach. So through the growth measurements, we found out that the time that the nut stays attached to the seedling can be up to 7 years. So before, it was thought that the Cocodema stayed attached to the seedling 2 to 3 years. So after we've analyzed all the data, we found out that the longest nut stayed attached to 7.5 years. This can be longer, but we still need to do more research to find out. So the average time the Cocodema stays as a nut is 5 months, and in germination is 13 months. So the Cocodema is more fragile when it's in germination stage. So in all the deaths that we've registered of the Cocodema seedlings we've been monitoring, so 50% of those deaths happened whilst they were in germination. So this is just some facts about Cocodema. So the leaves can be 7 to 10 meters long, 5 to 4 meters wide. The lifespan is thought to be 250 years. And the main pollinators of the Cocodema are geckos, mainly the Trachygaster, the Phasuma astriata, and sunburgee. So those are the green day geckos. It is a keystone species. By protecting the Cocodema, we protect lots of other species, the ones that nest in them, feed in them, or use them as shelter. So all profits from the harvested Cocodema nuts go back into conservation. So some key messages to take home. The Cocodema is essential to Vallée de Mai conservation, and 90% of tourists about come to Pollination to come see the Vallée de Mai. So we need to protect it for our economic future and for future generations. We need to protect it because it protects other species as well. And there's also a lot we still don't know about the Cocodema. So we thank you, guides, for sharing important scientific information, for educating the public and local community, and for protecting the forest for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma, for this very, very nice information. And as the guides here were discussing among themselves when you were presenting, that there are a lot of new information, which is indeed really, really useful, will be helpful for them. So thank you very much. Now we invite Jess.
You're welcome.
For her presentation on yellow crazians.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Constance, the Vallée de Mai Science Coordinator. But for the past 2 years, I've been working a lot with the Yellow Crazy Ant project. So today I'm gonna present to you the start of the project and what we are up to now. One second. Can you now see my screen?
Yes, we can see, but you don't have the presentation open. Okay, now it's up.
Like mentioned, I'm gonna talk to you about the yellow crazy ant, which we've been trying to control in the Vallée de Mai and the Fond Pépé. So like Monica and Irma have explained to you, Vallée de Mai is a palm forest that has the largest nut in the world, the Cocodema, and it acts as one of the keystone species to the black parrot, to the mollusk, to the geckos, and the chameleon. So throughout that, the YCA have played a really an impact to those species in Vallée de Mai. So YCA was introduced by a human in an area. Can you still hear me? Because my connection says it's not stable.
We can hear you. It's just a bit of a lag on the presentation.
Okay.
I can see the next slide now, though.
All right. Okay. So it was introduced by a human, and it poses a negative threat to the ecosystem of Vallée de Mai. So like you can see in the middle photos there, that's the YCA, and you can see the queen. So on Prana, YCA introduced in 1962, and in the northeast side area, and YCA is classified as the 10th worst invasive species in the world. This is due to because they attack their prey. They can attack a bigger prey by spraying a formic acid on them. So like you can see the photos, there's it, and then there's a snake and a slug. So it doesn't matter the size of the animal, the species, with their workforce and the acid that they spray, it easily attacks them. So the cause of the invasion for YCA is that they are super colony. Easily a queen can form a colony within weeks. They are very aggressive, like we showed in the former presentation. They can easily attack a snake, a centipede, and competitions. Once they take control, I would say, of an area, they can easily spread. And by years, you will see the amount of YCA everywhere, like the same that happened in Vallée de Mai. So in 2019, when we did a survey, we noticed that the population of YCA was 100%. It was a whole coverage in Vallée de Mai. So therefore, SIF had to do certain measures to control it. So, and for that, a lot of surveys was established for understand first the distribution of YCA in Vallée de Mai for prepare, what species have been affected by the YCA, and what step or solution we need to take for us to be able to control the YCA in Vallée de Mai. Surveys that involves in, for us to understand the distribution and population of YCA is pitfall and activity survey. Pitfall is when that we go in the forest, we set up the trap with some solution in there, we leave for 24 hours, and then the next day we collect it, and then we have to analyze the sample. Like the first photo, you can see that one of our staff, Ms. Irma, is trying to identify the species of ant in the sample. And then in the next photo, that's an activity survey by which you use the jar on a card, laminated card, and you have to, when you place the card, you have to come back an hour after, and then you have to count the ants on there. So these two surveys help us to understand the distribution of YCA in the forest of Vallée de Mai and for prepare. So that's what jamming is about. So all of the ants present on the card are YCA. Other surveys for us to see the impact of YCA on the species is mollusk and gecko, like you can see the first photo. So this one, when we do the survey, we analyze, we cite the geckos, the slugs, and the mollusk. So with all the surveys we've done, we need to take action, like I've mentioned before. And one of the action was for us to conduct baiting. Baiting is simply done by inspection in Vallée de Mai and for prepare. We use granule and liquid bait for us to be the granule we cast on the forest floor, and the liquid bait we put along the river of both Vallée de Mai and for prepare for that act as a boundary. And in the first photo, you can see one of the bait station. This we put the liquid bait in. And in the second photo, you can see one of our staff taking the measurement, how much of the liquid is left in the bait station. And then in this third photo, you can see one of our staff casting bait in the forest floor. We have done now 5 baiting. Soon we're gonna be doing a 6th one. And during a time, you will see that the distribution of YCA have dramatically decreased. So like in 2010, it have increased. And now we only have in 2020, we only have like 2%, even 8% of YCA in Vallée de Mai, which is a great accomplishment for the research team, for SIF, that we've managed to control a species that was 100% coverage to only 8% coverage by 2021 now. Our next step within the project is for us to continue to the species to see how they are behaving, not only with YCA, but the effect of baiting. So in the photos, we do a lot of surveys like we're doing skink and crab, where we take measurements of the crabs and the skink and see how they are doing. So we have done, before we started the project, we have done quite a lot of awareness in school, with the public, and even at Vallée de Mai, sometimes we will talk about it. But we still want to create that awareness. We still want Vallée de Mai to be free of YCA. And one part that we can play as a team, and you as tour guide, is to spread the word by with your guests, by saying, when you have your food, please do not litter, or make sure that your shoes is well clean. If you've been to another area where they have noticed YCA, to make sure that it's clean. You're not bringing it to VDM, because the effort you put into baiting and the effort you put into controlling these species, it's a lot. So, like I've said, we want to control YCA, and we want to spread the news on how much effort we have put into the baiting and controlling. And that's the end of my presentation. If you have any question, we'll take it afterwards. And I'll invite the next presenter for his presentation. All right, can you still hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but the presentation hasn't come off screen yet.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Sriana, and I'm a field research officer for SIF. I've previously been working here at Vallée de Mai for around 1.5 years. Then I moved to Adabra for 2 years, and now I'm back again, and hopefully moving forward. And today my presentation will be about herbs, basically herpetofauna. I'm just waiting for my slides to come in first.
You want video on or no?
So is my slide visible?
Not yet. I think you can try stop sharing and then resharing. Yep, all good.
All good.
Okay, then today my presentation will be about herpetofauna monitoring. Just briefly to go on, herpetofauna is the two groups of amphibians and reptiles. Reptiles are cold-blooded animals that basically lay eggs and have scales. And amphibians are animals that use the water and the land as a habitat. So just to start, amphibians and reptiles in the world is facing a global crisis. Being the main one is infectious diseases, and the main one is chytridiomycosis, and also called citrid fungi, which is a type of fungi that needs a moist surface for it to grow, which basically amphibians has, as most of the time their skin are constantly kept humid. And this fungi has been a result of almost 30% decline in the global amphibian population. And there's basically no effective measures to prevent this fungus. And it causes slow movements in the specimens that after it gets contact with the host. And it causes excessive shedding in the animal, the thick skin, as it releases those spores as fungus reproduced by spores. So the spores accumulates in the skin, and it is unable to feed itself or release toxin, and even in some cases, even breathe, and causes death. Just to name a few more of the threats to the amphibians are environmental degradation and deforestation, which slowly, as the world's human population increases, the stress increases as well, as people are moving more into the forest and destroying natural habitat and ecosystems, which is basically there's not much we can do about it, but the way we live could be more sustainable and less destructive. Just to go, some monitoring programs that we currently doing at the Valley. We have, most of them is related to YCA presence and effects, such as we do mollusking gecko, whereby we monitor geckos on male and female Cocodema trees. We do have song meters, which records the amount of course made by successive frogs. And this is done in Vallée de Mai and for Pepe as well. And we also do skink and crab, whereby we have funnel traps, drift fences that are set up around Valley and for Pepe as well. And we collect and do morphological data in terms of their width, length. And we do mark and recapture as well, so that we could know if we capture the same specimen again the next day. In terms of, there's a huge gap in the knowledge of reptiles and amphibians. Nothing much is known on them. Some of them have just recently been considered a species, which we will go through them shortly after. Just to go on. The Vallée de Mai is considered a very good site for establishing a monitoring, or long-term monitoring, and it has over around 18 different species of amphibians and reptiles. These are the endemic ones, not including the native ones. And there's been previous work done on the species, but mostly on a specific species or a group of them, such as the bronze gecko, in terms of their genetics, and Sicilians, frogs. And also included is that IAS invasive species that are introduced, such as rats and cats, and the famous one that just previously talked about, the YCA, Regeneration, which recently, after the increase inside the valley, there was a sudden decrease in reptiles and mollusks, which became quite rare to see with sightings in the valley. So hopefully after the baiting session, okay, see more individuals around in the valley. So just to mention some of the main endemic species, we have the dwarf bronze gecko, which is not endemic to Parrot, but it is endemic to the Seychelles. And it is not really not threatened currently, but it is facing some threats from habitat loss, and probably with no definite answer, but we can say might be a decrease in population as well, similar to the Seychelles, which can be seen also on some islands such as Cocodema, which is relatively bigger than the dwarf bronze, and compared to the dwarf, it has less patterns. As the dwarf has like more spots and bars, and these bronze gecko are classified into 3 different species, and the third one is the most famous one and endemic to Parrot, and even more interesting is isolated to the Cocodema palm forest, as it is rarely seen along the coast, and more specific to the related to Cocodema. And these geckos are very important in the ecological niche around, as it produces a pollination of the different palms, mostly Cocodema. There's also nutrient as well. Next page. Also, the valley, we have 2 species of gecko. First, we have the Seychelles gecko, which is Phasma astrata, which is not really that threatened, but still endemic and unique in its own way. Identified, and ways to identify them is that astrata is quite smaller, and it has an orange chevron on the head, and stripes and dots along the body as well. Compared to the other species found in the valley, the sandbaggy day gecko, this one is relatively larger, with rather speckles than stripes and dots along the body, but a really thicker lizard. An interesting fact about the sandbaggy is that there's a third species of Phasma, and on all islands that the sandbaggy is present, you will not see the third species. So basically, these 2 species probably come, they are different races, but probably from the same species. Over time, the species being isolated from each other, they turn out to be their own species. We have 3 different skinks. We have the Seychelles skink, which is the most common skink, and I think everybody knows of him because he's basically everywhere, or most of the granitic islands. But very, very interesting, but nobody really cares about it, but basically he's an endemic species, and it's only found in Seychelles. Another 2 skink are the 2 burrowing skink, the Gardiner burrowing skink, which is very broad, but Gardiner is quite thicker, but they both have short legs, and they are quite hard to find the burrowing skink. And both of them is hard, but the Gardiner is more common, and can be seen more frequent, especially now where we set up our drift fences, the funnel traps. Going forward. Looking at the chameleons, we have 2 different species of the chameleon in the valley, with the Seychelles chameleon being the most recent one to be classified as its own species. But they can really be differentiated. They're both endemic as well, and can be seen also on large granitic islands that has the high mountains, because they usually stay high in altitude. The tiger chameleon and the Seychelles chameleon, they can be differentiated by the patterns, which is once they are camouflaged, if the greenish color, it's quite hard to see, but once they start changing color, and or when they're stressed, you can really see the pattern. As the tiger chameleon has it doesn't really look like a tiger, more like a leopard, and filled with dots, compared to the Seychelles one, which is basically more plainer. It's just an interesting fact to share. Both chameleon has a body, mostly of the head, that glows from UV light in the dark, and they are both nocturnal animals, which basically means they hunt or they look for food during the night. And this is my favorite one, which is the two snakes we have in Seychelles. They are both endemic snakes. Firstly, we have the wolf snake, which is usually thinner but quite longer, and it is a dimorphic species, meaning it occurs. You can see them in two different colors, which has a gray morph, which is like in the picture now, and with a white ventral part, but they also kind of yellowish form, which is just bright yellow on top and still whitish on the ventral part. Another interesting part, going back through genetics and the ancestral of the species, the Lycognathus seychellensis, the wolf snake, is originated directly from Seychelles, and there's no trace of the race coming from another part of the continent. So this is a Seychelles endemic species directly. Compared to the other species, the house snake, which is also considered endemic, the Boydon geometricus, but following way back, like I said, through genetics and the ancestry race, the house snake has very similar, so it probably comes from Western Africa, but this is way back, probably even before people really had an influence of transporting animals from one island to another. So it's probably a natural course, or I'm not sure really which part during the timeline did the snake was able to move to the Seychelles archipelago. Recently, from the intense YCA density around the spin sightings do have reduced, so hopefully we do see them thriving again. Frogs, we have the Seychelles tree frogs, Tachynemia seychellensis, which is not really this concern because they're quite widespread around the island and probably a few islands as well. But an interesting fact about them is that the specimens found on Parrot and Mahe are very similar, as the males are brown and the females larger and green. Compared to the specimen found on Silhouette and Ladig, which apparently both sexes turn out green. Another famous frog, though famous but relatively small, is the second smallest frog in Seychelles. It is the suglossid frog, and we have two very small suglossid species in Seychelles. There's three altogether, but two of them is relatively small, and one is found on Mahe and Silhouette, and this one is endemic to Parrot, and you can see nowhere else. Some previous work has been focused on specific species or aims, such as distribution of, for example, the Trachygastas in the picture, distribution, density mostly, and ecology of the different species, as well as territories. There's been Jim Nabisco, who came for Sicilian genetics as well, and niche passioning between geckos, whereby they live basically in the same ecosystem, but play probably different ecological roles in the environment. So why should we tourism who come in the Seychelles about the different reptiles and amphibians? Because they are very threatened in this world and they have specific roles to play in each ecosystem, and our people's opinions are very important. For example, just an example, but I prefer the snakes. An old saying that used to say mostly cultural, but snakes are always referred to as a bad omen, or as you say, how can I put this, supernatural stuff. So often the people are see the snake and tend to kill it, even though the snake is not really in the way or in the house or far away. So educating people about this role in the environment should be a must, I believe, and this could really help in re-establishing a healthy population of the species. And we should focus on stressing out this point, and so that these species can last and for other generations, and to maintain a healthy balance in the valley and in the Parrot island at all. Just recently there has been a new law passed by the Cabinet of Ministers, whereby it was approved to fully protect the giant bronze gecko, the Ironic Stracogaster, and the Seychelles tiger chameleon, for not only as just protecting them, but also in terms of poaching and exploitation of the species, removing them from the natural habitat, or any thought that will affect them in the natural ecosystem. So thank you for listening, and we hope you have a few questions to ask. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Brian, for your presentation, and thank you all three presenters, all four presenters, for this very great presentation. So now I will open the floor for questions. I think Albert has a question for you. Tell us which presenter you want to.
No,
in general.
In general for all of you.
Okay, one second.
I really enjoyed it. It was nice. I really enjoyed it. It was nice. And as I say, continue the good work. But what is important, okay, I've been here for a long time as a guide. What I would like you to put forward, because it is very, very good information, new information I'm receiving. But I will say to you, see if you can discuss, because before it was like this. We used to have a newsletter every 6 months. Okay, that was released by SIF, where normally it's half on Aldabra information, new information, just like you are giving to us, half on Vallée de Mai. And it was very, very interesting. Okay, because I know today, okay, maybe it's a bit costly for SIF. If it's possible to print this for us so that we can get that information, if we have to contribute a little something to pay, for me, it's no problem. Okay, that at least I get this information on a newsletter that they use, because I don't know, since a long time they have stopped it. We used to get it, we guide you, they give it to us free of charge, but today we know that, okay, for printing it costs a lot of. But if it's possible to discuss this with SIF, so that if it's possible to put it on a newsletter, half information, maybe on Aldabra, half on, it was like this, half on Vallée de Mai, and we can contribute and pay something to buy this newsletter so that we can get this information printed in.
Okay, I think I will answer. Thank you very much, Albert. Thank you very much for this valuable point. Just to note that we still are publishing monthly newsletters. So what is happening, maybe we are not providing you with these printed out information. What we can do, if you have email address, give me your email address and we can send our newsletter, monthly newsletters to you. And if you want a printed copy, it's okay. I can print one out and give to the guides here at Vallée de Mai. I don't know if Mara would like to add anything to that.
Yeah, no, obviously we still do have the monthly newsletter. We carry it out monthly. I think we'll release the January one really soon. But yeah, it is strictly online. If possible, if we could just have it over email, Mr. Albert, but obviously I understand if you don't have one, but we're just trying to lower the amount of documents that we print. So that's why we moved to online.
All right, Sandra Rose, have another question.
Okay, so I have a suggestion. I work from today in Seychelles. I'm a journalist, but I do also tour guiding. In the presentation that Liam done about the Cocodema, I have seen that the study done has been mainly on the nuts and the leaf. And we have the tallest tree in the garden. So far, we didn't hear anything about the last measurement. Are you planning to maybe measure the tree anytime soon so we can get accurate information of the size now?
Currently, we haven't considered, but we can organize and to get the measurements for the Cocodema. That's not really a big issue, but we'll talk about it and put it forward.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So we have more questions from the guides. It's okay. All right, so if not, then I will say thank you very much to all the guides. Thank you to the Department of Tourism, which has already left. Thank you for participating with us on this for this webinar. And we are sure that you have learned so much new information about all the different species that we presented about this afternoon. And I'm sure that you will use them to share to the guests that comes to the Vallée de Mai. So thank you very much for attending. And so please feel free to contact us if you have other questions or if you need more information about the Vallée de Mai, about Adabra, and about the species that we have presented about today. So thank you and have a nice weekend to all of you. Thank you, the presenters also.
Thank you.
So
Welcome.
We hope to have many more such presentations. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.